how do you help somebody build trust again after they've been betrayed in a relationship? And like,
Yeah,
I don't know if this is what you see, Shana, but I see it like it's not just trusting a person again, it's like trusting any woman.
totally. It's trusting love, it's trusting any woman, it's trusting a person, it's trusting yourself, right? It's like, I feel the emotionality of it. And having been through divorce myself, um, I know what that was like for me also after, you know? So
Yeah, you've lived it and coached people through it.
totally. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I think is so important that you do, right, is you guide men back to, okay, how do you navigate your own nervous system and stay in touch with yourself and not, right, not dissociate or not leave yourself so that moment to moment as you're interacting with someone, you are paying attention, right? You're paying attention to, are you having reactions like, are you more anxious? Are you more feeling more defensive? Are you feeling hurt? Are you feeling understood? So like one part of this to me feels like once you are sovereign within yourself, you're not trying to prove, you're not trying to, or you don't need to defend, right? Then you can actually like you have this space inside you to pay attention to someone else. And I'll stop in a minute so you can say
Yep.
things.
Yeah,
The
there's
the courage, yeah, the courage to ask questions, like not avoid the topics that probably most of us avoided when we were young or in past relationships, right? It's like we're not trying to avoid upsets or avoid having different perspectives. And if we notice something where it's like, oh, that, could be an issue later, or I'm not sure that we're aligned in this way, like my my stance is like you go into that, right? You don't leave it, to like rot in the fruit bowl later.
Okay, so one of my guys was asking me this question last night.
Yeah.
He was like, "How do you tell if
Mhm.
somebody you know, is a good potential partner? Like if they've done
Yeah.
the work, or if it's going to take you down the same
Yeah.
betrayal path you've been down before? Like what when you're asking those questions and you're being curious, like what are
What do you,
what should you be tuning into?"
yeah, I love that. Great question. Okay. So one, I think what you're tuning into is directly asking the questions. I think, that has been one of my things as I worked with men for all these years that I'm like, it's okay to ask. Like you think you are supposed to know. If a woman puts you in this box, the man box of like, you should know about me and you should know how I work and you should know what turns me on and you should know not to ask and you should read my mind. And like, okay, big red flag. And so first of all, just asking, oh, what work have you done? Have you been in therapy or, have you done coaching or do you have a meditation practice or like, what are the things that bring you, or let's say like, what are the things that have you feel alive and what are the things that have you know that you're staying true to yourself? And it doesn't have to be a script, right? Like you can use whatever language you want, but I'm just kind of feeling into some of the themes especially around how to know if someone's staying true to themselves by really talking about it.
I love that. And the way you just frame those questions is so like kind and positive, right? Like you're getting
Yes.
really deep information about are they self-aware?
Yeah.
Are they aware of their patterns, their problems, the things they bring in? But you're asking it, I love the way you're asking it, like, what is it that, helps you feel alive? How do you know
Yeah.
if you're being true to yourself? What do
I
you do?
always ask it that way. Like, yeah, like from curiosity. And I say this to women too, where it's like, I believe you can ask any question you want to ask, and it doesn't have to feel like, oh my God, it's too soon. If you're in a curious conversation that isn't drilling for an outcome, like, are you the one?
Right. Oh my
Right?
God. Right. Like if you're coming into it and you're like, I don't trust women and I need you to prove to me that you're a trustworthy
Yes.
woman, like
Doesn't
probably
go
not
well.
gonna do
No.
well.
No, but if you're in there and you're like, and I talk about this with women too, it's like, how do we how do we heal within ourselves so that our past isn't overlaid on the person we're looking at? And what I often do with men is with people, I'll say, really this one too, is look at like what were the dynamics in your past? I'm sure you do something like this too, right? What were the dynamics in your past that you were not satisfied with? And what was your role in creating that? Because I don't believe that it's all another person, right? And you are empowered when you see, oh, I can know that if I do this again, this outcome is likely. And so knowing that and knowing your part, right? If you know, I stayed silent and I didn't say what was upsetting me, even from date number one, or what seemed kind of awkward, or what just like something was off, or I just let someone just talk and talk and talk and talk, and I was totally bored the whole time, but they seemed nice enough, right? It's like, those kinds of things will bite you in the ass later.
Yes. And if you can recognize that you did that, then you don't have to repeat it.
Right. And you could even say, oh, in my past relationships, I had this pattern of not speaking up when things felt awkward to me or uncomfortable. And like, I actually want to practice now. I want to create a relationship. If this is true, I want to create a relationship where I'm like actually close to someone, where we have true intimacy, or again, whatever words you want to use. And so I really want to know you. I really, and I really want you to know me. And I want us to kind of, if we do this together, I would want us to support each other to be our fullest selves. And what do you think of that?
Right. And they're like, you give that person so much room, right? Are they in for that? Are they interested in that?
Yeah.
But coming to it from such like a gentle, curious place.
Yeah. And not one that the other person is wrong if they don't match with you, but it's like, oh, we're different. We seem to want different things. And, in that way, if somebody wants something different, you'd be like, oh, I notice you seem to want this and I seem to want this. Like, we're probably not going to be a great match for partnership, but I don't know, I'm still open and curious and it's a possibility. Or like I have men ask the question, again, you can put it in your own words, but it's almost like, what is the highest expression or what is the highest good for each of us in whatever connection we create? So it may be partnership, it may be, sex and only sex, but I believe you can have like deep intimacy, even if it's, one time having sex. It might be a creativity buddy or, some kind of intellectual stimulation, or I reconnected with a spiritual practice on one of my dates after my divorce that I'm now in still like 15 years later. So all kinds of possibilities.
So like you're not like trying to force this person like into this box. It's
Yeah.
where do we connect? Where do we not connect? And how can we support each other in being our best selves,
Yeah.
regardless of what that looks like? And I would imagine you start asking those questions and you find out pretty quick if the other person is even at all interested in having that
Yes.
conversation, right?
Totally. And after my divorce, I realized that love, lust, and partnership were three separate tracks. And in my marriage, I was like, oh, we had love, we had lust, partnership, like the way that we went about doing things, our pacing in life. There were so many things that I could have foreseen. I still may have chosen, who knows, right? I'm not going to say that was a wrong decision, but there are, it's like if you actually want partnership, it behooves you to look at how do you want to live your life? How do I want to live my life? What are the things that we have overlaps in? I don't think it's like, oh, we have to have the same hobbies, but if you want a life where you're off traveling the world and someone else still has a 3-year-old kid at home, and there are going to be frustrations, right? And so just seeing and being open to like, are we actually a match? Or and the balance of heart and clear mind versus just like, oh, my heart, I love you, I feel all of these feelings.
Cute. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Because I was talking to a man about this the other day, and he was a younger guy, for my community at least. He was in his 30s.
Yeah.
And he was like, in my 20s, it was like just about that passion.
Totally.
And he was like, and that was really fun. And he's like, I remember then somebody telling me that like, they had this whole list and they wanted to match on values. And he was like, I thought it was crazy and like kind of boring. He's like, and I'm
Totally.
saying that like I want those things. Like
Yeah.
I don't want it to be just
Yeah.
a lust connection or even just a love connection. I want us
Yeah.
to have a life together that we both feel fulfilled by.
Yeah. And I don't have any judgment if somebody just wants lust. Like, when after I was divorced, I spent many, many years saying to the men I dated, I am not available for, I'm available for a long-term connection. I cannot guarantee that because what I'm doing over here, I'm rebuilding trust with myself. I am figuring out how I don't lose myself in a relationship. I came to find that like the only way to really play with that was to have some, I think I had a couple 2-year relationships, a 4-year relationship. So there was commitment there. I just didn't know if I could say forever. And I actually think in a way that's the truest way to be in a relationship, which is like, let's see what magic we can create. And if we can, or if we find that we're not a match, can we set each other free to have the love that we really want to have, right? Like that, I think, is an amazing opportunity after divorce is to know most of us after divorce, maybe some are still looking for kids and, the biological clock is ticking and things like that. But most of us have more freedom than we did in the past because it's like, oh, there's no timeline unless we put a timeline on it. And, we don't have to find the perfect parent or yeah.
So I'm super curious how you navigate this in your work, Shana, because what you're speaking to, I can already hear like a handful of the men I work with going, that's why I can't trust to date women again. Because there's a group of not all of the men, but there's a group of men that I work with that the commitment is such a part of their identity,
Yeah.
right? That like if I'm marrying you, if I'm with you, like
Yeah.
I'm all in and I'm
Yeah.
all in forever and you can count on me and I've got your back and I'm here.
I love that. That makes my heart totally melt.
There's and there but these the betrayal that they've experienced now is that feels like either that wasn't good enough,
Yeah.
left anyway. And the fear they have is that the next woman they're going to meet is going to say, I don't think I can commit.
Yeah.
So they start to have this fear that maybe it's just something about women
Hmm.
capable of that same kind of like lifelong, I'm in this through the good and the bad with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say to a guy who's like struggling with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's such a tender question too. And I will say, I now am in a partnership where my partner just moved in after 3 years and we're living together. And so I did get to the place. It wasn't about, part of it was about me and my capacity, but part of it was also about making sure that I wasn't deceiving myself again, making sure that I wasn't missing anything, right? So in some ways, I think it's, um, if you find someone who really is clear, like I don't have the capacity to commit right now, and what you really want is commitment, I would say that's not
Yeah.
a match. That's another one that I added was love, lust, partnership, and timing, because timing is important. It's like there's no right timing, but it's like, oh, if someone just got out of a divorce and they're not ready for commitment, and you're 5 years down the road and you're like, I'm all in, you're gonna be kind of yanked around as they go through their emotional turmoil like you probably went through, right? So, um, yeah, so okay, so first of all, if a woman's not ready to commit, and you're like, that is my most important value, that's a non-negotiable for me, then I think that's not a match. But I think I go back to curiosity, which I know you value as well, and having questions like, oh, what does commitment mean to you? What are you committing to? Because in the old paradigm of marriage is, till death do we part in sickness and in health. It's just like that's what commitment is, right? I think it's more nuanced than that. It's like, well, what do you want to commit to? I may never get married again, like legally, but I also might next year. I'm open. I'm like open to either way. And but what I do know is that like I am 100% willing to commit to this partnership with my partner. So we've had conversations where he's the one who's more likely to like or more inclined toward marriage and the legality of it. And I've been like, who needs to do that again? Like,
Good for you.
but as he's not pushed me, but really gotten curious with me, like, okay, well, what are you afraid of? Or why wouldn't you do that? Or if you're willing to commit in this way, what's the difference for you? Not trying to get me there, but like,
Tell you on his way.
yeah, but like
To-
really genuinely curious.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
let's understand, not to change your mind.
Yeah, because often we're having a conversation where we're using the same words, but we're meaning totally different things.
Yeah.
So I mean, every man who you work with, like, I want them to have what they want. And I think sometimes I believe there are many women out there. I think there are more women out there than men who are doing this work consciously and, would die for an amazing man who wants to be that committed. So if you're listening to this, I totally believe that you can have it. And I think it takes some of that curiosity and inquiry, and again, not from a place of judgment, not from a place of like someone's wrong if they don't, but more from a place of, do you want to play with me? Like, and in what ways do you want to play with me, right? Do we want to have like more serious, like we're really going here? And if so, what would that take? Or what are your concerns? Or where are you unsure of yourself? Right? If we avoid talking about where we're unsure of ourselves or asking where someone's unsure of themselves, we start to make these assumptions like it's very black or white. They're either capable or they're not capable. So I think more nuanced questions.
Yeah, that it's not so, and I think like when you're in the trauma of that betrayal and it's still so painful, the brain goes to those extreme generalizations,
Totally. Yeah.
right? And you're saying like it's so much more subtle than that, and you have to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And I love the timing piece, right? Because like what you're talking about doing, like you knew you have these patterns. Can I trust myself to make good choices, to choose
Yeah.
partners that I can grow with and not fall back into those old relationship cycles?
Totally.
And that's one of
Totally.
the traps that I do see, some guys falling into as well, is like they start dating and they maybe feel like they have to go straight into that full commitment because that's who they are and that's how they've been.
Yes.
But they find themselves choosing a partner that's really not a great match and they don't give themselves the room for those
Yeah.
and to really have those conversations before they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
My partner and I joke about this because it's funny, like the more we talk about it, I'm like, I didn't wait that long, but it took me a good 5 or 6 dates with him to realize, like, oh, I really want to explore this more. Like, I knew he was a great person, but the way I describe him is that he was Superman pretending to be Clark Kent. So he wasn't really showing me all of himself. He was trying to be more palatable. Like he didn't bring his humor right away. He didn't bring certain parts of himself because he didn't want to push me away. And he was like, maybe I don't want to do the wrong thing.
or like,
Exactly, exactly. And so, if you're listening, right, and that's your style, I would say my suggestion is to err more toward being yourself with attunement. Like, notice if you make a joke and then someone really, she pulls away or she gets stiff or she, something, and it's just like, oh, it seems like that one didn't go over very well. Can you not beat yourself up, right? Or make yourself wrong, but just notice like, okay, that's a yellow flag, like maybe something to pay attention to and inquire into. And right, if she's like, ooh, that one didn't work for me. Like, okay, tell me why, because I don't want to offend you, right? That's not my way, but I don't have to give up myself either.
yeah. Well, and it's like all this exploration to find out, like, are we compatible, right? Like, here's
Yes,
who
that's where I
but
was going with that one too.
like I don't know, I have to notice if it doesn't land with you,
Yeah,
not so that I can modify or censor myself, but so
yes,
that I can try to understand. And like you were saying, so often there is just a misunderstanding. Like we're using the same words or I'm telling a joke, but you're
yeah,
not hearing it the way I'm trying to say it.
yeah. Yep. And I love what you just said. I think that's where I started, which is like giving yourself time to know instead of we have to label this, like, who are we to each other? I think that's just comes out of like a discomfort with uncertainty. And so if you're dating and a woman says, like, well, I need to know, are you committed? You know, or vice versa, if you're like, I need to know if you're committed. Like to me, okay, then there's more conversations to have there. And again, none of them have to be had in a pressure-filled way. But say a woman is anxious and she's like, well, I need to know. And I actually did this. I'm remembering, I'll out myself. When I was dating a man, it was probably a good 8 years ago when we started. And we were in this, like, we were very, first of all, we like aired all of our dirty laundry first, which I don't know if I'd totally recommend that, but we were both in the same spiritual practice. And we were like, we can't hide from each other. Like, that's not going to happen. We're going to like show each other all
All
these
the
parts.
dark spots,
And
yeah.
it worked for us. But there was a point where I was just like, I don't know what we're doing and I don't know who we are to each other. And like, had a super anxious day and we even like named it, the park day or something because we remembered like where we were sitting. And yeah, and he just like he was like, I feel you. I get it. We don't know yet. And like, I'm so sorry that's so uncomfortable. And I'm like, I'm in this with you. I'm in the discovery with you. And, he had a lot of trust, like that we would figure it out. There are some people who can't sit with that level of uncertainty or who, like myself, like had a moment and it was like, it was hard in that moment. Um, But I think there's also a question of can you sit with your own uncertainty? Can you hold that without needing to concretize or like, pressure someone into a dynamic? And can you spend the time to truly see? I don't know if you know the book Eight Dates by the Gottmans. Do you know that one?
I know the Gottmans, but I don't know 8 dates.
Yeah, they wrote a book that has 8 topics or 8 themes. I think it's like money, sex, probably parenting, health, well, like all the different the main topics. You might be someone who's like, "Oh, okay. I am happy to date. I am happy to be in a relationship, but in order for me to know whether we're going to be true partners, I want to go through some of these topics and I want to see like are we aligned enough?"
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and have like really have those conversations through that.
Yeah. And if you meet someone who's like, oh, no, for me, it's just about passion and lust, and that's not true for you, then it's like, I bless you, like there's nothing wrong with that. And I want to honor and respect myself.
Oh, you just take the pressure off of it. You're like, I'm
Yeah.
just exploring, I'm asking questions, I want to know, and I'm just feeling like, is this aligned for me?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
that you have the self-respect, like you were just saying, I want to honor and respect myself
Yeah.
to say, no, it's not a good fit when it isn't.
Yeah. Right. And that question of are you a match for me versus am I good enough for you? Like, if you're here and you're taking Rachel's class, I already know that you're an amazing catch. Like there's nobody who would work with you who isn't going deep into their growth and their soul and their psyche, and you deserve to be with someone who meets you there, not someone who, again, they're not wrong, but just like isn't in the same, plane of consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love the just taking the pressure and the judgment out of it.
Yeah.
Just becomes this curious exploration, which sounds so much more fun. Um,
Yes, exactly. Like, why not have fun when doing this, I think there's so much anxiety that can happen. When I frame this for myself and for clients as it's either a path of growth or a spiritual path, however you want to frame it, whatever works for you, then every moment of anxiety or, not feeling good enough for me, like that's an opportunity to work with my own insides, right? Like you do with them. And so then instead of like, oh shit, this is dating is horrible and I hate this, it's like, look what it's opening up for me so that I can learn and grow and actually have amazing love.
So, Shana, I want to shift gears a little bit because it keeps popping up behind you, your
Right.
book, Honest Sex.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about sex because there's so many good questions there. But I'd love for you to maybe tell us a little bit more about your background and like how you're a dating and love coach, but you also have come to be the author of this book, Honest Sex. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey, and then maybe we can talk about sex?
Yeah, sure. In my 20s, which was more than 20 years ago, I was part of this conscious community. And we were like engaging in personal growth and we committed to each other. So we had this commitment where we were like, we called us soul to soul. We were like, we're gonna bare our souls and we're gonna make messes and we're gonna like, play with attraction and jealousy and all these things and be honest with each other. And we're not gonna bail. And from that, we started creating these courses. We created the Authentic Man program and the Authentic Woman experience. And in the Authentic Man program, I was on a team of women where we came in on the last day of the course and gave men honest and loving feedback. So it wasn't like, you need to be this way, right? It was more like, oh, when you approach me like that, I feel scared, or I feel sort of dull, or I'm kind of like, I'm not sure what you want from me, or wow, I just burst into tears because like you just moved me so much, right? So I had an experience doing that that totally changed my life where I fell in love with men and I was like, oh my God, there's, behind the masks and behind the facades, there was just so much positive intention and love and vulnerability. And that was for me, I was like, okay, I want to be an ally. I want to support men. I want to like be a woman that they can practice with so that, the stakes are lower practicing with me than in a relationship or on a date.
Oh, Shannon, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And because you've now been on that journey really ever since,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah. And I would say honest sex, came out of my decades of coaching and what I see that it takes to keep a relationship alive and to keep passion alive, and that the foundation of that actually is honesty and a particular kind of honesty that I call mature honesty. So instead of like, I'm being honest with you because you're being an asshole, it's
right.
like the
Yeah.
kind of honesty is like more vulnerable, going beneath the surface, revealing parts of yourself, not using you language, but actually, oh, I felt misunderstood versus like, you're not, you always do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that from there, and I was listening to another class recently about a woman who talks about soul intimacy and I was so aligned and I was like, oh my God, right. This is what I live, which is the more honest I can be. And when I find a partner and I found a partner who wants that kind of depth of honesty, and if we're having sex and something doesn't feel good, he's so welcomes my like, hey, can we do this differently? Or can we try something else? Or especially men who are older and dealing with those of us who are in perimenopause and menopause, like trying to find ourselves in that. Um, so really that this kind of honesty is actually the foundation of intimacy and passion that goes beyond, I think, what most people ever experience. And I talk about going from one-dimensional sex to four-dimensional sex, where the one-dimensional is okay, we're having a physical experience, which again, nothing wrong with that. I don't judge it. Sometimes it's super fun and hot. The four-dimensional is we've got the physical, we've got the emotional, we've got the spiritual and the energetic. And so we're meeting each other on all these levels. And not only that, but I feel what you're feeling, you feel what I'm feeling. So we could call that like 16 dimensions, right?
Right. Yep. Now we're going. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you have to be so present
Yeah.
and curious. Kind
Hmm.
of things we've been talking about, but in sex.
Yeah.
And Shana, would you speak to? I'm going to ask it all together, and we can unpack it in whichever
Okay.
way.
Great.
Um, I know some of the men that I work with after divorce, especially the guys in their 50s and 60s, are dealing with things like erectile dysfunction,
Yep.
sometimes premature ejaculation, things like that. And there can be a lot of shame and
Yeah.
like internal beating themselves up about it. And then on the flip side, there's also the perimenopause and menopause transitions that women are going through. And a lot of the guys I work with are like, I don't understand that. It seems scary. It kind of seems like they go off the rails and they feel really disconnected from women
Yeah.
going through that. So I guess both of those are disconnecting things.
Totally.
How do you have this kind of honest sex with those kinds of
Yeah.
challenges?
Yeah, and I will say I've apologized to my partner because I'm like, okay, like a year in, I suddenly started having all these perimenopausal symptoms and it became, different positions that had worked for us. Like I was like, that fucking hurts. Like this is horrible. And So, and in the beginning of our relationship, also, I think I didn't know that I was perimenopausal, or I was like, I knew it, but I ended up having a couple urinary tract infections. He was having pelvic floor like pain and discomfort. So the way we started was actually super vulnerable with each other. And he has said to me, like, oh my God, I didn't even know that it could be this intimate, or that, like my stance, and this is part of the book also, is that sex is not just physicality, right? Sex is energetic, sex is emotional. And so we can, when we connect with as much of ourselves in pleasure and, openness as possible, that is sex. And so, again, the honesty, the being willing to have these conversations, as well as being very curious about, like, well, what does feel good in this moment? And, like, again, my partner is so willing to be with me in the moments of my, it's not insanity. It feels like insanity inside my own body, where I'm just like, I don't know how my body works anymore. And I feel emotional, and there's all these things happening. I'm a responsible person, like with
Right.
my own emotions and stuff, but it's also just like, it's a crapshoot what I'm going to feel day to day and how my body's going to be. So again, I would say having these honest conversations of like, hey, this is vulnerable, or it's vulnerable for me to say, I sometimes have erectile dysfunction. But when you find someone who's like, okay, well, let's figure this out together. Or when you bring that desire, I would love to figure it out with you because I want you to have more pleasure than you've ever had in your whole life. I'm committed to that. And, we're working with bodies that are aging and changing, and nobody knows what either person is going to bring to the table.
It's such a cool approach to come to that, because I think like, especially the erectile dysfunction, like it can feel like so much pressure
Yeah.
to, but if you can come to it with, hey, I'm having this experience with my body right now,
Yeah.
and I want to have this amazing, intimate, pleasurable experience with you, like, are you willing to explore with me ways that we can
Yeah.
help you feel good? And
Yeah. And there are so many ways. I think in, cisgendered heterosexual relationships, we get very focused on penetration and genital penetration, and like, that's what sex is. And I will say, like, having explored tantra and BDSM and all kinds of other things, there are so many ways to play and have pleasure. And in my exploration with my partner, when we started playing in other ways, that because before I was like having more perimenopausal pain and symptoms, that was it. We would like go more toward intercourse, and it was like kind of a disappointment that that wasn't happening as much for a while. But then we started exploring and opening up and getting curious, like, all right, well, what else can we do? And like, if I'm really honest about what my fantasies are beyond that thing that we're not doing right now, or that thing that's not working for us right now, like, what would I really want? and and we've actually started creating these dates where one of us gets to be the one who's like, okay, this is what I want, and this is what would be super exciting for me, and are you open to playing and exploring? And they've been profound. Or like clinics sometimes we'll have with each other, where it's like, okay, I heard a woman who said, like, I don't even know if my clitoris is in the same place anymore after perimenopause. And I was like, oh, I think that could be even true for my body. So then it's like, if we have a little clinic, like, what brings me pleasure now versus before,
right,
which
you have to discover that as well because it's changed.
totally. And I would say that for most women, I don't know, you can speak to your for you too, but like most women I know, it has changed by the hour, by the day, by our cycle. So it's not like most women are not very just, this is what works for me right now, and this is what will always work for me
Right,
anyway.
because the perimenopause, it's not totally new that sometimes what I like is different
Yeah.
even or sexually than
Yeah. And there's like more of a willingness to speak up about it, I think, because a lot of younger women are like, okay, well, that's good enough. Or,
I'll do what makes him
oh,
happy.
just, yeah. And then everybody's surprised, a decade later, when it's like she blows up and she's fucking pissed. And she's like, you never knew my body, and you never. And
About your body and what you were feeling.
yeah, and it's so sad to me. Like, at this point, I would even say, I don't want men to come in suspicious with women, but what I see is amazing is that like continual curiosity of what could bring you even more pleasure. Because I know for myself, even with decades of exploring Tantra and all these different ways of having sex, I'm still discovering new things. And I think it's endless. And I think it changes based on, our body chemistry and all the things that are changing inside of us.
And like the way you're talking about it, Shannon, it almost sounds like let's take the guy who's having erectile problems.
Yeah,
Like you're almost making it sound like there's like this huge opportunity there to come into the relationship and be like, hey, there's things in my body that are changing, and what used to work for me in sex isn't working for me. And
totally.
I want to find ways to feel like to just I want to discover how I feel pleasure now and what
Yeah.
that looks like for my body at this stage. And
Yeah.
I
And how I can bring you more pleasure.
and like
And
I
by
want
the way, most men I've dated in my 40s and I'm almost 50s, but I've dated men in their 40s and 50s. Even actually, one man was in his 60s. Um, Throughout this post-divorce process, most men have some kind of, I don't want to call it dysfunction, but it's like, erectile shyness, maybe we could call it, like coin a new term in the beginning where it's like, yeah, like I don't know if I can fully trust you yet, or I don't know. It's vulnerable. And I think most men haven't felt that before.
I was married for 35 years and
Yeah,
now you like of course you're having some physical symptoms of I'm not sure if I want to be this intimate.
totally. And am I safe with you? Which when you're in your 20s, it doesn't freaking matter. Like you can have a heart on, without just like thinking about it. But as we get older, I found that so many of the men I've worked with, when we start digging into like what is really going on, I actually want to feel emotionally connected. I want to feel appreciated and understood. And I want to feel a kind of intimacy that I didn't even know existed before. But now that I do, I sort of can't go back to just the physical sex. Like I need it to feel more connected.
But I need sex to be this intimate exploration of something deeper together
Yeah.
and not just a physical
Yeah.
act when I was 20.
Yeah.
And so then like I mean it takes a lot of courage, I think, and to be really and to have that sense of self that like if the other person doesn't respond the way you want that you're still okay.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like having those conversations, whether for a woman about her menopause symptoms or perimenopause, or for a man about erectile symptoms, it almost sounds like having those conversations early and kind of inviting the other person, like, is
Yeah.
this something you're interested in exploring with me in this way?
Yeah.
Would be a really good kind of filter of, is this a place where we're compatible?
Totally. And I love those kinds of filters. Like, I have a kid who's LGBTQ. And so when I was dating, that was one of my filters. It was like, I'm not making anybody wrong, but if you can't celebrate that, then this is going to be a really hard, right? Like, it's not going to work, really, if we're honest about because I want to feel supported. I want my kid to feel supported, right? And same with this, like when my partner and I look back at the beginning of our relationship, it's like either one of us could have gotten upset or frustrated or just been like, well, you're not going to be, a good partner. But we learned so much about each other through how we each faced the challenge and how we were willing to show up with love for each other that I think that really solidified our relationship sooner.
Yeah, it's like the things that people are so afraid of and are so afraid to share, if it's the right match or the right fit for you, it's actually those things you're scared to talk about are what's going to actually bring you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a sense I'm having. Let me see if I can put this into words, but it's like, I know for men, there's a lot of like the man box, right? I'm supposed to be solid. I'm supposed to be all of that. But yeah, and it's so much pressure. And I'm not saying I did a TEDx talk that's called What a Thousand Men's Tears Reveal About the Crisis Between Men and Women. And in that, I really talk about how, there's a difference between dumping your vulnerability on someone or like having the sovereignty, loving yourself enough to be like, wow, I'm having a hard moment or this is a hard one for me. And I want you to know me, right? I want to have this vulnerable intimacy. So I'm not saying like rush into a relationship and just go dump. But if you want, yeah, right. But if you want true intimacy, then you've got to, learn how to talk about these things. And from my experience, when you feel that kind of sovereignty, that it's not like, oh, if I'm afraid, there's something wrong with me. It's more like, I know I'm a good person and I'm human and I get afraid. Then you're not looking for the other person to validate you. Then the conversation, there's so much more freedom to have that conversation.
That conversation then can even come from that place of like, this is a hard thing for me to talk about, but I really want to have, I want to know you. I want you to
Yeah,
know me. And so,
exactly.
right. And so there's that, I love it all comes back to this honesty that you started with, right? It's like honesty and curiosity.
Yeah.
And then all of these, and the willingness maybe to let go of people who aren't the right match for you.
Yes. Which is hard if you really think about like how I don't think any of us were really taught when we were young. And like there's so much chemistry coursing through us, and there's such this biological, urge to.
It's like, oh, if we're not the right match, what's wrong? Is it wrong with me or is it what's wrong with you? Like,
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. I love, there's a Rumi quote that is something like, I'm never eloquent when I say this, but it's like, beyond the field of right and wrong, I will meet you there. And right, again, I want people when they're dating to leave others better than you found them, appreciate, even if you're going to say no, like appreciate who they are, or not, not if someone's abusive to you or someone's nasty to you, or like you don't have to, but instead of ghosting, or instead of just not being willing to have the conversation about like, well, why aren't we a fit? And having the woman question like, what's wrong with me? To be mature about this. I think we all deserve that.
to have that honesty, right? Like, I love how you said it earlier. Like, how can we serve each other's best selves through
Yes.
this interaction, whether
Oh, I
we
just got chills.
act again or not?
Yeah.
Uh,
I
yeah.
love that. Because then, then you're out there supporting people to learn and grow. Other people are doing the same thing. So we're going to be better partners for each other when we're all having those experiences versus when we're having shitty experiences and people are just bailing on us, which happens both ways.
Right. Yeah, because then and then dating also becomes, it sounds like another container for growth.
Yeah,
Because here you're challenging yourself in these situations to have those conversations, even when you don't
totally.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. So you're now when you do meet the person who's ready to meet you there, you're so much more comfortable in that vulnerability.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, Shane, there's so many good things I want to ask you. Um, can you maybe share, do you have any like most inspiring, I don't know what's more helpful, like inspiring stories of men that
Yeah.
you've seen like successfully reconnect and find love after divorce, or maybe more like patterns that you,
Mm.
well, I'm not sure which one would be more helpful. If there's like a story that stands out or,
I could do both. I mean, because I will say most of the men I've worked with have had the nice guy pattern.
okay,
And they're, more sensitive than they realize. They discover through doing the work with me, and I imagine, right, doing the work with you, like, oh, I am feeling this, and you know, um, I am more aware than I thought I was. And so the nice guy pattern, right, is often like, I'm going to do everything I can and try and make it good for this person, but I leave myself behind, or I don't ask for my needs to be met. I kind of, just shove them to the side, and I'm like, oh, that's okay. Maybe someday it'll happen. Um, and the men who are now in relationships, it just like it brings me so much joy because these men are having deep conversations about, their love languages and their fantasies and what has them feel truly understood and loved. And they're saying to me, like, I feel more known and understood and loved than ever before. And I feel loved in a way that like I didn't even know was really possible. I thought love was more just like, all right, we live in the same house, we raise kids, we're kind of doing this together, and like, yeah, we have sex, we have chemistry. But what's going even deeper for these men is being appreciated, and cherished is often a word I use more for women. I think women like describe it as like, oh, I want to be cherished, but I'm trying to feel into the counterpart for men where it's like not just appreciated, but I don't know, like deeply, deeply valued.
Like there's the words that come into my mind are like to really feel seen, like fully
Hmm.
or heard.
Hmm.
Um,
And
and
loved for that, right? Rather than like
love for
someone's
who I
putting up with that.
yes, exactly. Like
Yeah.
instead of like you're tolerating me, like you love all of me.
Yeah.
And then the other word that came up for me is like more nurtured.
Mm, yes. Receiving, nurtured and being nourished in a way that they had never done before because their focus was more on how can I give? And I part of the reason I love working with sex also is because it's a concrete representation of the other dynamics that are harder to like visualize. So it's like when men are givers sexually and they're like, I want to make her orgasm, I want to make her feel good, but they lose themselves or they're just like working hard to make that happen versus I can experience pleasure and her pleasure and I can give to her while also like feeling what feels good to me, right? There's a difference of being able to go from the nice guy to this more integrated whole man who's like, yeah, I want to make you feel good and I matter too and I want us to do this together.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the guys I work with are in the same pattern. Like they've really sacrificed for their family, for their
Yeah.
wives. They've got that
Yeah.
like happy wife, happy life. And so they don't either they're not fully aware of what they need, or they've just never felt like anybody cared. Uh,
Yes.
and
Totally.
really receive that messaging pretty directly
Yeah.
through childhood their wives that like what they're asking for, what they need
Yeah.
doesn't
I
matter.
know. And I'm so sorry. I just like it just breaks my heart to when I hear about men who were shamed for very human things, very human desires. And maybe you were awkward, or maybe you didn't know how to communicate it, or maybe whatever the case. But I just don't think there's any need for shame or disrespect in relationships. And you deserve to receive that kind of love and nourishment and pleasure and be understood and valued and appreciated and, have that mutual sense of supporting each other.
And there's a part, right, of the healing process. I'm curious what this looks like for you in your work, Shana, because you also have to get to a place where you're capable of receiving that. Like, right, when we've
Totally.
been a giver for so long, it can be really difficult to allow somebody.
Yeah.
So I think, I do see some men who repeat the same patterns in relationships because they're choosing partners who just need to be rescued or
Yeah.
supported and aren't capable of giving, in part because they're not really comfortable.
Yes. Yeah. One of the things I do when men are dating is it's like because they know that I'm also tracking the patterns,
Right.
they can relax a little bit more, right? And because I'm like, okay, if I hear you just giving and not receiving, like I'm going to point that out, A, first of all. B, I've had so many, I love this. I love working with men on receiving where I get to, one example is like I give an acknowledgement. And if a man is like, oh, thanks, or goes on to the next thing, or I'm like, okay, let's slow this down. And I have one moment, I mean, there are many of these, but one moment that stands out is when, I said to a man, like, do you understand how, can't remember exactly, but it was like I was so moved by who he was being that like I was in tears. And he sort of, as I said this to him, he kind of rushed past and I was like, wait, like look at me. Like, do you see what's happening over here? And can you feel in you my appreciation for you or my gratitude for you? And he paused and looked at me and just like burst into tears and was like, oh my God, I've never been able to receive appreciation. I've just kind of glossed over it. And so that's one of those ways where, yes, sometimes we're with people who don't appreciate us 100%. Other times we also keep the dynamic going or make it worse by thinking I'm a man, I shouldn't receive or it's not manly or all those things. And so to really slow it down and make sure that men are capable of receiving and know that they deserve that is one of my favorite things to do.
Love that exercise. That's beautiful. I'm gonna steal that one.
Yeah.
Uh, Shana, we just have a few minutes left. Would you talk a little bit about how you work with clients and if somebody wants more from you, how do they get it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I tend to, create what each person needs, right? So I don't have like a this is how it has to go. But oftentimes with men, I have a couple different things. I have a program called Effortless Connection, Affection, and Sex, which I do sometimes in a group. Right now I'm more doing it one-on-one, and basically like we meet one-on-one and then you go through the program and then we get to talk about all of the different pieces of it, like what actually makes it feel effortless as opposed to it is this struggle or, all the pain that has happened. Like how do we shift that to make it effortless? I also have a dating course around how to make dating easier and the fundamentals of dating for people who are, just starting to date again. And similar, it's like I either you can do the home study course or we can set up a way that we actually do sessions and work through each of those modules together.
They can take the course or they can do it with your direct support.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, beautiful. And Shana, I'll put your details in the notes and the description of this video as well. Do you
Great.
have a preferred way for people to find you? Should they go to your website? Should they go to a social media channel? You have got the Man Alive.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely email me, Shana at shanajamescoaching.com if you want to reach out directly. If you go to my website, shanajamescoaching.com, and Shana is Shana. There are multiple places to book a free consultation. There's different quizzes you can take, and my TEDx talk is on there. So yeah, all different
All different.
resources.
Perfect. Well, I'll put all of those links in the video description so folks can find you.
Awesome.
Shana, thank you so much. We'll have to do this again because there's so many other questions. And I know in the comments we're going to get questions, and I'd love to encourage folks
Oh yeah.
what you want to like, what else do you want to know from Shana?
Yeah.
Like what else,
I'm
what
happy
about
to answer them.
um and we can either get you answers or maybe you and I can do this again and we can answer some of those questions.
I
Um,
love that. And I just appreciate you so much too, because I don't know how it feels for you, but sometimes being a woman who works with men and is so excited about supporting men I can feel a little bit like on the outside when I'm working with a lot of men. And so when I meet other women who just have this passion and love men as much as I do, I just feel like, oh, I'm so grateful for you.
yeah. No, I thank you, Shana. I feel that as well. It's and there's just a few things you said today about well, just how excited you really are, like the passion you have and the compassion that you have for men.
Yeah.
Because it's there's like a gender war, it almost feels like
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
You, I see women getting caught up in it, and I see men getting caught up in it, and there's so much pain
Yeah.
on both sides. And so yeah, it is really lovely to connect with another woman who's just really trying to meet everyone as a human being.
Human. Yeah. An individual versus this set of
Yeah, because there's all these like stories, right? Of like, well, men are this way and they're
yeah.
incapable of real vulnerability and real honesty, and then women are this way and they're incapable of commitment and real love. And it's like
Yeah.
our brains are just not that different.
No, and if you go into dating, like you said, I think before, it's like if you go into dating with all of these stories and all of this history, and you put that on the person in front of you, it comes back at you, right? And it's like we do have we have some control over how people respond to us. I've seen many situations where one person interacts in one way, one person interacts in a different way with the same person, and they get totally different results, right? So, yeah,
Curiosity, right?
yeah.
Like you've been doing so much today about like be curious and be genuinely curious and ask questions, and like that's where the connection comes from. And I think all those stories we think we already know about this
Yeah.
person, so we can't really be in that like beginner's mind curiosity.
Yes. And if what's blocking your curiosity is anger or frustration, it's valid, right? I'm not saying like just, ignore it. It's like I often do clearings with men too, where we work with, and I imagine this is part of your program, maybe of like, okay, what are the pains and what are the hurts and how do we, clear them, speak them? Like sometimes I stand in for a woman who's hurt a man in the past so that he can just say what he never said and feel his own power coming back to himself.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. That's such a cool exercise and takes a lot of grounding for you, I imagine, to be in that role.
Yes.
This is one of the things I'm talking about in my community right now is like if that anger and that frustration is coming up, like that's a big sign to me that like this is not the time to have a conversation about whether or not women are trustworthy.
Yeah.
This is the time to talk about your trauma and
Yeah.
how you hurt and what happened to you,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it did happen to you, and maybe you haven't had a chance to really like voice and explore what that feels like so that you can process it and heal from it.
Totally. Oh my God, there's so many more things I could say. I was just, I was thinking of a client last night who was working through some of this like old past trauma. And we were walking him through this experience where he was feeling his heart like soften and open, and he was like feeling loved. It was, we were working with a dream he had. And I was like, that is like, that's a gift for you. That is you getting to experience what true love feels like, not with another person. So you don't have to doubt it or be skeptical or question. It's like, that's what it feels like when you're loved by another person in this very pure way, right? So we get to repattern. And I see it as like sometimes as a woman, we're repatterning with the men because, you know, wounding creates these dynamics, and so like they're created in relationship, and so there's also a kind of relationship where we get to heal that together. Yeah.
Right. And it was, I mean, I always think of Dr. Susan Johnson is one of my favorites with attachment science. And she always talks about like when we're wounded in relationship, we have to heal in
In
relationship.
relationship.
And I do see there's some power in relationship with ourselves
Hmm.
for that healing, but then there's so much power in relationship with others, whether
Yeah.
that's the therapist, the
Yeah.
coach, the
Yeah.
community sharing your pain with.
Right. Yes, and for sure.
Yeah. Oh, Shana, thank you so much for
Yeah, thank you. This is
coming.
amazing.
One last like 30-second question. Like, what's if you could, if there's one thing that you could help like all men know,
Mm.
is there something that feels important as like a closing sentence? That,
One thing that could help all men know. I mean, I think just that like you get to be human. There's nothing wrong with your humanness. You don't have to, you know, be some cartoon character or some like, you know, media portrayal of, I was gonna date myself, but these are men who are in their 50s and 60s, like Clint Eastwood or right, like yeah, it's not about that anymore when you choose, you know, that you want real love and real intimacy. You get to be human, you get to be loved for your humanness. And so you don't have to get rid of parts of yourself. You actually get to really fully, you know, look at, love, accept these parts of yourself, and then bring them to another person to be loved also.
Shana, thank you.
Yeah, thank you too.